Kiss-related question for Mr. Douglas. Shane, what is your take on Paul Stanley recently saying he could see Kiss continuing on after Gene Simmons retires in a couple of years? Would you still consider it Kiss? And would you ever go see them live without Gene?
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of any wrestling fan of the franchise knows of Kiss. They were, for me, I was in that perfect age sliver that came up, in 1976 when Kiss hit huge with Destroyer. And I think Paul Stanley's perhaps the greatest frontman of a rock group ever. I mean, what a voice, what a writing ability, what stage presence. But, I mean, let's face it, music like wrestling is very personality-driven. And you can put somebody out there in boots and tights with tassels and black and gold. You can call them the franchise. It's an uphill slap because the fans remember Shane Douglas as being that character. It's much why I refused when Paul Heyman wanted me to do Ric Flair's chop and his figure 4 because Richard Flair had done the Nature Boy to perfection. There was nothing I could do to top what Richard Flair had done with that character. I don't think another guy with a star on his face could be as potent or as successful as Paul Stanley was. Look, Tommy Thayer is a phenomenal guitar player, as is Eric Singer on drums. But because you put Peter Criss's and Ace Frehley's makeup on them, when you go to see them, you're really watching two guys, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. So I don't think the brand, it could carry on. It would never be as big as it was with Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss.
Speaking of Kiss, speaking of wrestling, you were kind of around in that era of WCW. What did you think of Dale Torborg and the Kiss Demon in the WCW?
Dale's I'm a huge fan of Dale's. He's a great, great guy. His wife, as you know, it was Asia with the Revolution. Chrissy's a sweetheart. My take on it at the time, for what little I knew, again, I was just a wrestler in the dressing room. I wasn't really privy to what was going on in the office. But to me, when Kiss came in, that could have been played so much larger. Kiss, even then, even though they were coming off the 80s, they were still, and you still see today, I was online watching and I saw some things of kids in high schools around the country with their face painted on Kiss and everything. Kiss is one of those rare groups that has transcended generations. And, they're as popular today in certain segments as they were in the 80s. Maybe not as big as they were in the 70s, but there's, you ask any kid in high school today, do you know who Kiss is? They certainly know who they were, who they are. So, as far as Dale, I think the whole thing, originally, of course, the Gene Simmons character, the Demon character, was not Dale. It was, from Demolition, Brian Adams. And, hit with chairs too many years. Played it.
Yes, the original. Yep.
But Dale Torborg, carried that through and has maintained a relationship with Kiss and Gene Simmons since. I think that, the plan was to eventually launch characters based off of Paul Stanley's makeup, Ace Frehley's, and Peter Criss's. And, of course, that didn't materialize. I think that was a huge ball dropped.
What was up with Taz using Kiss-themed music?
Well, that song War Machine off Creatures of the Night was a song that I had dabbled with for a while. Being such a huge Kiss fan, I wanted to use. But when I really sat back and took a step back and looked at it, it really didn't fit my character, even what the character would become. But I knew in my head where I wanted to take the franchise character, and that wasn't his character. For Taz, it was perfect. The human suplex machine. War Machine worked out perfectly for him. It fit his character. And, if you go back and sort of in your mind envision the franchise coming out to War Machine, I don't think it would have worked. In fact, I know it wouldn't have. For Taz, I can't think of a better song for him.